over the years, many of the growers in our family and other families in the area were wiped out with the freeze. They didn't expect it. They thought winter garden would always be warm and be good for growing the crops. But then the freeze came along and their crops were on the ground. All the money they had put into raising these crops were ruined. So then the next year there was another freeze and the trees were ruined. So they had to either start over or sell the land. At the same time, another relative, Jappa Minor was, she had a lot of growth, she and her husband. And so they started the South Lake Apopka Citrus Growers Association so that the growers could each grower didn't have to have their own equipment, tractors, sprayers, and they could put it into, their groves would be managed by the South Lake Apopka Citrus. And so she did that. She was a very young woman, but she got that started in Winter Garden. It worked out just fine. She also got the first bank started in Winter Garden. And she was only in her 20s at that time, but she did very well for us. The Christian church in Ocoee, where she was a member, the preacher retired, and so she found a young man in Ocoee, Billy Weeks, that wanted to be a preacher. So she paid for him to go to college, and then he came back and he was a preacher for many years. Lake Apopka was advertised as the bass capital of the world. So people came here to fish in Lake Apopka, and I remember when it was clean and clear and beautiful, and there were fish camps all around the lake, cabins for people to rent, and I remember going out with my father and other fishermen on the lake, and it was beautiful. And we would go for the day, but in a few hours we'd catch enough fish that we needed, so we'd come back in. It was like Peter in the Bible. So it isn't that way now, but it was then. I remember when the groves were beautiful all the way from Winter Garden to Clearmont on the hills, and they built the citrus tower, and you could see for miles, see all the beautiful orange groves, and now it's all rooftops. But I miss that. I miss the orange blossoms. Where can you go to smell the orange blossoms anymore? So when our 5 children were small, everybody shopped downtown Winter Garden. They had the dime store. The kids could take a quarter. They would be happy there for hours. They had the barber shop right there. They had J.C. Child's department store. This is back in the early 50s. Moselle Cox had a dress shop for women for fancy clothes, and her husband Tom Cox had a shop for men. My favorite place in Winter Garden was the modern stationery shop, and when you went in there, they took you around, you picked out what you wanted, they put it on the front counter, then they came back and helped you with your next purchase. There was no buggy or basket. They knew your name. They expanded from one storefront to the other and doubled the store, and everything was going great. And then everybody was sorry when they closed their doors. You know, a lot of the small businesses went out of business. That was the Valdez that ran the modern stationery. There was Tibble's drugstore, Davis drugstore. If you ran out of money, you could go into Harold's Loan Company and they would loan you some money. There were things going on over at the Edgewater Hotel, downtown Winter Garden. They had a doctor's office. They had studios to get the pictures made. They had a room where you could have a shower, bridal shower, baby shower. It was a nice place. The Edgewater Hotel, they had places, offices in there and studios in there. Oh, the most popular activity that we all loved was baseball. Winter Garden, the men, when they got out of school and there was no more baseball, they organized the West Orange, the Lake Orange League, and they got to play all the baseball they wanted to. It was all volunteer. We played in Winter Garden, Tavares, Leesburg, Eustis, and then the wives would get a number 3 wash tub, fill it full of ice, bottles of Coke and knee-high. We'd parch peanuts and we'd sell that in the stands, and then they would have the money for equipment. But we loved it. We played baseball every night that they had a game and every Sunday afternoon. Sadly, my husband, Miles, died in 1978. My youngest son is 47 and he still plays baseball or softball almost every night, and so does his son. Our children and most of our grandchildren live in West Orange County. There are wonderful churches here, and they've been established by the early settlers and still serve the community well. Life goes on. That's it.
May I ask you what you think the future holds for West Orange County?
I think it's wonderful. I think Winter Garden is attractive to every age group. We still have 10 acres out on the bike trail. We see the people going by. The bike trail is very popular, and it has